For the 101st time, drivers, start your engines. You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. and welcoming you and taking another lap of the extra mile for tonight, August the 15th, 2019. And ladies and gentlemen, we have been here now for 101 episodes now. Unfortunately, I was not here for episode 100, but I am back. The sheriff is back in town for now. But I'm so happy to be back here, and I'm so happy to have been doing this the past couple of years. Third year now for this program with all of you. And I couldn't have done it without Mr. Larry B of iSports Radio. And, of course, my co-hosts, Caitlin Seam and Michael Ward. Caitlin is out this weekend. Michael will be with us later. But the fourth member of our team is actually here with me right now. That is Miss Lita Camello. Lita, welcome.
Thanks, Daryl. Good evening, everybody.
Good to see you.
It's been like a quiet week in like motorsports.
Yeah.
In a way of like, there's not actually races going. Oh my gosh, and the echo is driving me nuts.
Well, let me turn the music down.
No, it's okay. But there's been a lot of news happening. I think this week was huge news, or bigger in news than normal, but pretty quiet otherwise.
Yeah, there is a lot of news going on here in the last week. It kind of all popped off here in the last 7 days. And we'll start with Formula One, where this news happened. And unfortunately, well, not really unfortunately, I think all of us will say that we kind of saw this one coming. The switch has been made at Red Bull Racing. Alex Albon is in. Pierre Gasly is out at Red Bull Racing. Gasly goes back to Toro Rosso while Albon gets the promotion to the big Red Bull squad. And Lita, like I said, we kind of saw this coming early on, that there's a good chance this could be the case.
Yeah, and the sad part is we didn't want it to go in that direction, because Pierre Gasly is, or what we thought was, a talented driver. He was showing a lot of promise at Toro Rosso last year, and he just couldn't seem to cut it with Red Bull, and which doesn't make sense because you have the better of the opportunities. So I'm hoping it doesn't have much to do with the fact that, Verstappen is their, crowning achievement and their attention most of the time. Like he is the primary driver. But I don't think this is a matter of, the primary and secondary driver. This is just an issue of he just can't seem to get it together. And as much as we all try to predict whether or not somebody's going to make it to the end of the season, let alone the next season, I think, in a sense, I knew that we knew that it was going to happen. I'm just surprised it happened as early as it did. I think that was the more surprising thing out of all of it. Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead.
What I want to go back is, you mentioned, that is this Red Bull favoring Verstappen? This isn't the first time we've seen this with Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, and the Red Bull outfit. Remember when Mark Webber was there and we had all the drama between him and Sebastian Vettel, and it became very obvious that they were favoring Vettel at one time? It seems to be par for the course with this team.
Yeah, and Verstappen, even though Ricardo was technically, I think, the senior like primary driver at one point, Verstappen was doing fairly well, but he became the main central focus, and that was a lot of the reason why Daniel Ricciardo left. He even tried to ask for a salary that matched or surpassed Verstappen's, and they were like, "Nah." So it's just it's it's interesting because you do know that teams to an extent will kind of select one over the other. There are a lot though that let them just race and do their thing. So, I can't help but wonder if there may be a little bit to do with, at least his inability to be successful could have a little bit to do with the team setup. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I would say that might be like 30 to 40% of the problem. Most of the problem, I think, is most definitely a Gasly. And like I said, it's a shame. It kind of reminds me, I mean, we talked about this with Ed Jones and IndyCar too, where you have this phenomenal driver that comes in and is performing well, and then the next year they've an even better team and they're nowhere to be found.
And the sad part about Gasly's performance is that he wasn't really doing badly.
No.
Well, to be in the context of a Formula One driver, he was not doing badly. These are going to be his last 5 results, which would be from the French Grand Prix until the most recent race at Hungary. He finished 10th, 7th, 4th, had to slip up at a ridiculous German Grand Prix where he finished 14th, and 6th at Hungary. So, not too bad. This is how his teammate Max Verstappen ran in those 5 races. 4th, 1, 5th, 1, 2nd. Now you put Gasly's numbers with Verstappen's numbers, it looks really bad.
It's like they're on 2 different teams.
Yeah.
Gasly's numbers are more like a successful mid-pack team. What was Force India, Haas.
Oh, I take
Renault.
Those numbers at Haas right now.
Yeah, seriously. But I'm saying, like, typically, that's for the last few years, that's typically where you would see a top mid-pack is in that general, or a better mid-pack is in that vicinity. So you're on a top team that's slightly competitive with Ferrari and Mercedes, actually more competitive than Ferrari in some cases, and you're getting 7th and 10th place finishes. It has to make you wonder what's wrong with this picture.
Mm-hmm. It's bad when your worst finish is 14th and your teammate's worst finish is 3 straight 4th place finishes. Yeah. Or actually a 5th place finish, which was twice at Canada and Great Britain. It doesn't really do much for Pierre Gasly, and we know how cutthroat Red Bull Racing is, with really from the start of their driver program all the way up. You don't get time to develop. It's either perform or you're gone. And for Gasly, he's gone.
Yeah, your development program is their B teams. So yes. In this case, he had that year of development with Toro Rosso. He was given the opportunity and he blew it. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against Gasly, and I am somewhat bummed. But at the same time, like, this is what Red Bull does. You can't hang out if you're not going to play the game correctly, especially right now. The big thing is, is trying to give Mercedes a run for their money. And Verstappen's trying. Gasly should be a threat just behind him, and it's just not happening. Mm-hmm. So it's a bummer. I'm curious to see what Alexander Albon does. Obviously, out of the 2 Toro Rossos, and we've both discussed this a lot this week, Kvyat we felt was the more well performed, but, now the question is, did he turn down the spot, or was it given to Albon because of Kvyat's history with having made it to Red Bull and been demoted and then fired and then all the way back around again, or not, or not necessarily fired. He just ran out on his contract. I can't remember. But anyways, the fact that Kvyat has a history with Red Bull. So it'll be interesting to see if Albon can do any better in comparison to Gasly and kind of get an idea on how they got to there.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised that Kvyat did not get the call back up, only because it would have made an epic episode of F1 Drive to Survive, and I know that we shouldn't be. Man. I have priorities, and sometimes they intersect with the show. I know they're not trying to do things to hype up drama for the show, but come on, it was a missed opportunity. But seriously, it's a great move for Alexander Albon getting to step up to the Red Bull A squad. Maybe Kvyat comes up if Albon doesn't perform. That right. is a possibility, and that would be crazy that he went from getting fired, being Ferrari's test driver, then coming back to Red Bull proper and actually driving. Maybe he has better results. Who knows? But it hurts for Gasly. I mean, his confidence, I don't want to say is shattered, but he is not going to be in a good place when we get back racing here in 2 weeks.
No, and that should be expected. You're on a great team. You're in one of the top 3 teams this series, and you're told, we're sorry, but you got to go. It's hard. It's hard being told you're not good enough for what you're doing. And then, being... I think it would be easier if you're in a normal work environment where you get demoted and it's just the colleagues that you're around and work with that know. But to have it plastered on every news thing has got to be a little painful to swallow.
And then he's going to be asked about it about 15 bajillion times when he actually gets to Belgium here in a couple weeks. So it's not like it's going to get any easier for him, to be honest.
No, not at all. So again, like I said, I am bummed because I was hoping for good things. I think one interesting thing that they pointed out in the Drive to Survive series is that, Gasly and Leclerc were actually really good, friends that have raced against each other for years. And so it was kind of neat that they're both on these, top teams, right behind each other. And now his friend is still, living it up at Ferrari, but he's not.
Yep.
That's got to be a little painful too. So, I do not envy his situation in any way, shape, or form right now.
I do not either, to be honest. This is going to be rough for him to try and come back from. Hopefully he does, though, and performs well here the rest of the season, and maybe shows up Alexander Albon in the Red Bull, but given the way that those 2 cars have run, that's probably not going to be the case, to be honest. But it will be a storyline to watch for the rest of the season, because it sure as heck won't be the World Championship race.
Nope.
That is those are pretty much well done and dusted, so we will see how that goes. But that's not the only driver transfer that we're going to talk about this evening. We're going to also talk about briefly a transfer that's happening in 2020 in NASCAR, where Matt DiBenedetto has unfortunately lost his seat at Levine Family Racing. This was the least kept secret in NASCAR this year, Lita, where Christopher Bell has pretty much been the heir apparent to the 95 since about mid-season. He's going to get that ride next season. Matt DiBenedetto is out. He is now the front runner for the recently opened seat at Front Row Motorsports, as David Reagan is retiring. And Lita, it's a similar story where you don't want to see the guy lose the job. I mean, he was performing well for what the car could do, but when you have a driver that is C plus rated right now, but there's a guy with A plus potential coming up behind him, that A plus potential guy's usually going to get the spot, especially nowadays if they've got some money behind them, because Christopher Bell's got that TRD money behind him. Matt DiBenedetto didn't really bring any money to the table, so Matt's out and Christopher's in.
And you know, the unfortunate thing about that story too, not knowing as much about it as it is, you know, it's unfortunate to see what happens when you have or don't have money in the racing business, and this is a really good example of that. It's, you know, maybe this is your seat, but you're gonna have to part with it because money. Simple enough.
And it's kind of sad because you swing over to F1. How many F1 drivers' careers have we seen crash and burn because they didn't have the money for it? You know, it's a rough part about this sport is that you need money to really do anything in racing. Let's be honest. I've been at a dirt track. Or even to
be seen.
Yeah.
You know,
and I've been at a dirt track since March this year, and just talking to people and just hearing the prices of stuff will make your head spin. I mean, to run a pure stock car, which is like a second tier dirt car, runs you about $30,000 to $40,000, $50,000. Don't even ask me how much it costs to run a limited late model, not a full super late model. This industry is expensive. I mean, it's really, really expensive. There's no other way to say it. And unfortunately, I don't think there's a way to change it because it costs a lot of money to go really, really fast, unfortunately.
That's why I bought a motorcycle and not a race car recently. Much cheaper to mod and play with than it is to do it with a real car.
Yes.
And with sponsorships, like, I think it was a lot easier, you know, 20, 30 years ago in racing because there was so much sponsorship that was available to these guys that you really did. You had to work hard and schmooze and do your part, most definitely. But the options to be able to get those investments, I think, were much more readily available than they are now. Everybody is a lot more cautious with where their dollars are going. So, you know, I mean, think about, and I'm still working on this, guys, but think about when I was talking with Connor Daly and some of the stuff that he's done to get even just the little bits that he's gotten. And actually, that's something we can touch on too when we get over to IndyCar. He's got a couple more rides for this season already. I think at this point he'll have driven half the season, which is pretty good for somebody who's not a full-time rider with a team at any degree permanently. But just what you have to go through to be able to get that kind of money now. And, you know, these guys are getting to the point where they're starting to get creative because, you know, businesses don't invest in things like this the way they used to, which is unfortunate when you have some of these series that are actually expanding. Not in NASCAR, you know, it's a great example. It's losing money left and right. So it's just, you know, if you have money in any capacity, regardless of talent, even to some degree, you have a better shot at getting somewhere in this nonsense than anybody else.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of really talented individuals that should be in much better places, and they just can't be because they don't have the money. They don't have the people behind them. They don't have the sponsorships.
And when drivers, especially drivers in the mid-pack that are insanely popular, like Matt DiBenedetto is, with the denizens on social media they tend to react badly when their social media darlings end up losing their jobs, which goes into the unfortunate second part of this story that we're gonna have to touch on. Matt DiBenedetto was having a breakout season, with having several career bests with Levine Family Racing, and if you remember, he almost won the Daytona 500 earlier this year when he ended up in the big wreck that took half the field out of contention. Cody Ware was another one of those drivers that was involved in that incident, and unfortunately, some individuals, some of which do use the NASCAR subreddit, decided to send hateful messages to Cody Ware via Twitter, and Cody lashed out in response on Twitter, and I will read the thread in its entirety. You can find this on his thread. Or you can find this on his Twitter. People are sick. I kept my mouth shut and didn't respond to the death threats and attacks I received after Daytona. Now a driver loses his ride after 2019 and people are telling me to kill myself and sending me threats. As someone who has attempted suicide, it is terrible and inhumane. I have been in and out of mental facilities on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medicine for years, and people think that something completely unrelated to me is worth throwing me into for no reason. NASCAR fans are absolutely the worst in all sports. You can hate me all you want, disagree, and think I don't belong in a ride, but I draw the line at thinking I'm better off dead. I've been down that path and wouldn't wish it on someone that I hate to their core. Now I want to stop here and actually, no, I'm going to finish it, then I'll come back to this part. I'm not ashamed of what I've gone through, and I've taken the beatings for what I deserve for my actions in the past. But for someone that still struggles with the will to get out of bed this morning, it is incomprehensible to me that I'm better off dead because someone lost a ride. And then he goes on to say that he's shutting down his DMs and messages across his social medias because of the abuse that he's been receiving. And I want to go back to the start of the third tweet where it says, NASCAR fans are absolutely the worst in all of sports. It's hard for me to agree with that because I've seen how NFL fans can get during the season. And if you have a Twitter account, just watch the dumpster fire that's about to light up in some of these underperforming NFL teams here in a couple weeks. But it is, as far as motorsports is concerned, NASCAR fans have a really bad reputation, and it's hard to say it's not justified. And I've seen some of the tweets that people have put out there wishing drivers get hurt or died and something like that, and that's even before we get to the ridiculous comments that have been made about Toyota being involved in the sport. It gives the fan base a black eye, and I'm not trying to say that all NASCAR fans are bad, which you can't say that because not every NASCAR fan is on Twitter. But it is a really bad look for people to be sending death threats to a driver over someone losing their job, especially when that individual has nothing to do with the other person losing their job. Matt DiBenedetto winning the Daytona 500 probably does not keep his job at Levine Family Racing. Let's get that clear. Trevor Bayne won the Daytona 500 in 2011. I was there for that. Trevor Bayne is no longer in NASCAR this season. Winning the Daytona 500 gets your name on a trophy and $1 million. That's it. It does not guarantee your ride anywhere.
No, and that's the thing, and I think unfortunately there's a little ignorance and lack of understanding that kind of creates these issues even more. But it's simply people just complaining about things because they can, and they're pissy about it. So, we have the social media where you can basically dump anything you want onto there and everybody can see what you're thinking and feeling, and it's justified because it's there. But the other thing is, like I said, it's an ignorance. Like, they just don't understand all the pieces and parts that come into this. And yes, believe me, I have had drivers in multitudes of sports where you lose them and that's it. Like, you are completely bummed, but that there's a lot of factors into it, and people just need to accept and realize that. Can you be bummed? Yes. Do you need to send death threats to the person taking their job? What kind of world are we in? Like, seriously, get out and go do something.
And people wonder why 90% of the drivers' Twitters are run by PR at this point.
And why they don't put anything personal on there anymore.
Right. If I'm a NASCAR driver, I would not be on Twitter with this mess.
God knows.
Like, I understand now why they spend most of their times at the racetrack in the motorhomes instead of being out signing autographs. If I had to deal with stuff like this on a weekly basis, I wouldn't want to deal with the fans either. And I know, case in point, Kyle Busch. I kind of get it. I really do. Why he wouldn't want to spend a lot of time with the fans. After seeing what Cody Ware is going through, I get it. Because it's completely and patently ridiculous. Matt DiBenedetto winning the Daytona 500 changes nothing about his career. Matt DiBenedetto has not won since K&N East. There is no guarantee he is ever getting to a good ride. He is 28 years old right now, which in reality is not near the prime of a NASCAR driver, but in today's NASCAR world,
close.
Yeah, in today's NASCAR world, he should be doing a lot better at 28 than he is right now. Like, this is his best statistical season, and he's 23rd in points. He was not going to be in that ride forever, no matter how much Frank Levine loves him. There was no guarantee he was going to keep that ride, especially with LFR being as close to Joe Gibbs Racing as they are. Winning the Daytona 500 doesn't change that. And
no, because that's one of how many races, especially because they have such a prolific race season, too, compared to other
series, right?
Right.
And another thing, it's kind of sad that Cody Ware and Matt DiBenedetto's careers have kind of become intertwined in the realm of negativity. Remember, we're coming up on the anniversary of Cody Ware dropping the "you cheated on your wife" bomb about Matt DiBenedetto last year after they got into a tangle at Darlington, which at that time was kind of weird and hilarious, but now it's like, leave the man alone. It is not his fault Matt DiBenedetto didn't win the Daytona 500. It is not his fault Matt DiBenedetto no longer has a ride. Reddit Jesus will be okay. All right? He will find another ride, and y'all can root for him and say all you want to after that. Threatening someone with death is completely ridiculous. This sport has enough black eyes as it is. You do not need to add to it. Stop it.
You know those people aren't listening to this show, though.
I know, but it helps me feel better.
No, and I understand. And the big thing, too, is you and I both have seen and know the people that watch this sport. And, you know, I think more of the death threats and everything comes at that point from an attention standpoint more than anything. Is it wrong? Absolutely. Like, there's no need to bring it to that. There's no need to half the things that come across in these situations. In the commentary with these particular individuals. But, you know, seriously, like, find something better to do than be shitty on social media. Like, for the love of God.
Please find something better to do. And where did we get to the point that sending death threats was okay? Like, when did this become a thing? Because apparently I missed something where
We all missed that
telling
memo.
telling people to go kill themselves is the best way to get their point across when they're mad. Why is this a thing? Like, this is why sometimes I wish we couldn't use assumed names on these social media sites. Because if you had to put your government out there, I'm pretty sure a lot of these people would not be acting like this.
Oh God, no. And I mean, the funny thing is that there have been stupid and ignorant things said on the internet that have made people lose their jobs. So it is kind of interesting that the rule doesn't completely apply to everyone. I should say also yet. And then somebody's going to run in with free speech, though. And okay, I get it. Like, great. But this is now you're getting into the territory that a lot of people are fighting with the bullying and, the online, just completely online harassing in general. And where do we draw the line in there? How do we protect people from the idiots that are like, oh, I could start something. Watch me do this.
Yeah. Here's my thing on that, by the way. Free speech only protects you from the government.
Yep.
Let's get that one straight right now. These social media sites are under no compunction to protect your right to say stupid stuff on the internet. In fact, it would actually behoove them not to protect your right to say stupid stuff on the internet, because y'all aren't saying anything profound. You're saying some of the most racist, misogynistic, hateful crap that anyone could spew out from their cake holes. Stop it. No one cares about you getting your internet tough guy on, because if you said this stuff to somebody to their face, you'd get your teeth knocked out. So save the internet tough guy act for someone who cares, which is not a lot of people, and kill it. Especially when it comes to people that represent my favorite sport, because again, you're making the sport look bad. Unfortunately, it doesn't need a lot of help doing that, sad to say, but they are trying to fix it. You aren't helping. Shut up.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Literally.
And that's probably where I'll leave it. I don't think Matt DiBenedetto needs to say anything about this situation. Nope. There is not a lot he can do about this that would make it better, because it's not him doing it. Yes, it is his fans doing it, but he has no control.
He could at the same time, be there is one little thing he could do, and I mean, it's his decision, but I mean, you could go out there and be like, hey guys, listen, like, I'm bummed about losing my ride too, but this doesn't need to involve messages telling my replacement to kill himself. Like, well, please Cody's be more respectful than that.
And the sad part is Cody Ware is not even his replacement.
Yeah, so it's like
Christopher Bell's the guy taking the ride.
See, again, uninformed and ignorant.
Yes.
Just creating more problems than necessary. You know what? I'm bummed at where NASCAR is, because, I've talked to lots of people about this and having enjoyed where it was in the days of, like, I'm going to say this wrong, Petty and, like when Mario Andretti had ran a couple of times, and those kind of individuals where the cars were different, the racing was different. It just, it has become today, and things like this just further solidify, like, just that repulsive feeling whenever you're like NASCAR and you're like, like, this is not.
And it's sad. In a good light. And it's sad because it used to not be like this. I mean, when I started watching it, off and on in the early 90s, I didn't really have control of the TV. I was like 5, and then every weekend from 2000 to about 2010, that was the best time to be a NASCAR fan. We didn't have to deal with a lot of this mess. All the racing was great. The stands were packed. 49 cars were showing up every week. It was great. And now we're here, and it's just one head shake after another. And I still love this sport. It's just we got a long way to go to getting back to where we used to be.
It's a love-hate. It's like some days you're like, I can be okay with this, and then some days you're like, okay, I don't even know if I can take that.
I mean, you guys have heard the meltdowns. I've had a couple with this sport already, but
A couple?
hopefully,
I feel like we've had a few, maybe a couple this year.
It's been a few, but hopefully it will get better. I believe it will get better. If I didn't, I wouldn't be watching anymore. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to save Pocono for last because we got a little bit of a shorter show this evening with just the two of us. When we come back, I'm going to have a question for Lita, and I'll give it now so she can think about it over the break. What is your favorite race out of all series that is no longer contested? We'll get that answer on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Clear.
Two Wheels Wednesday is the place to come for all your motorcycle sports news every Wednesday on IE Sports Radio with myself, Matt White. All the latest news, rumours, race reviews and previews from World and British Superbikes and the big one, MotoGP. Two Wheels Wednesday, every Wednesday on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sport.
Hey USRN fans, do you have a product or company you're trying to promote? Look no further. USRN is teaming up with small local businesses trying to establish themselves via online promotion. Let us know if you're interested. Email us at usrnradio@gmail.com to learn more.
What up, all you boxing fans? This is Vince Wright, the sports governor, and me and Gilbert Batista are the host of Ringside on IE Sports Radio. Make sure you keep it tuned to IE Sports Radio, Spreaker.com for the latest edition of Ringside. All the boxing news you need right here. Keep it tuned, Spreaker.com, IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to the Extra Mile here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. It's just Daryl and Lita here this evening, and we are available on Twitter if you want to talk during the show. Lita's at Lolita Camelo. I'm at DK Jr. 12. And Lita was just remarking that, you know, it's just us two today, and the Twitter is kind of quiet. So let us know if you're out there. Let us know if you're listening, and give us your responses. Give us your responses on Twitter. We will read them out live on the air because we like talking to you guys, even though sometimes it gets a little bit crazy.
Raunchy. I was going to say, it's amazing how much we've gotten done and talked about, too, when we're not all, like, screwing around.
Well, it's mostly Caitlin says something, and then we're just derailed for 15 minutes. But we love Caitlin.
She doesn't even have to say it anymore, though. It's just implied in our own minds, and we directly go to there, and then it just it's gone. We're gone.
Yeah, to be fair, she's done it enough times to where we can see it coming, and we still can't get over it because we are all, at the end of the day, still mentally 12. Let's be honest.
Pretty much. I still even do it at work. It's just how we roll, guys.
And before we go in, I want to give out my prayers to the Earnhardt family right now. This was reported on Not What It Seems earlier today and on several outlets during the day. Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his family were involved in a plane crash while arriving to the Bristol area for this weekend's activities. Understandably, he will not be on the NBC broadcast in any way, shape, or form this weekend. Everyone in the plane crash is okay. The two pilots, his wife, daughter, and his daughter, and their dog that was also on the flight, as well as Dale himself. Everyone is okay, but after the craziness of this afternoon, understandably, he's going to need a couple days to get everything together, and I understand that completely. So we want to send out our prayers and our well wishes to the Earnhardt family, because that is a really scary situation, and unfortunately, it's not like NASCAR and everyone have not had issues with planes in the past. So it's just so good that this story thankfully had a happy ending.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what they're feeling right now. Also, I do have to say a sigh of relief for the fact that we don't have another tragic Earnhardt outing to talk about this time. So,
yes.
That would leave for a pretty unfortunate and sad legacy. So I'm glad to hear everybody's doing well.
I mean, when it first popped up, my mind automatically went to the worst, because I saw people blowing up my Facebook about it, and I'm like, oh goodness, no, please do not tell me he died in this crash. And thankfully he's okay, and he'll take the weekend off. I know, gonna hug his wife a little bit closer, gonna hug that little girl he has a little bit closer, because that's a rough feeling, getting out of one of those. So I'm glad Dale and everyone is okay, and we'll see him on the NBC broadcast next week. So we will continue on now to the question I posed during the break, or before the break, which was what is your favorite race that is no longer run, as we're in a little bit of a summer break here, so not a lot of racing going on this weekend. So we're going to talk about some offbeat things. This is one of them. And Lito, during the break, we kind of accidentally came up with a theme for these, which was races that were basically 20 minutes from our house, to be honest.
Yeah, and, well, I will say at least MIS was more like a little over an hour. But yeah, it basically hometown races. My answer, the first things that came to my head, which I always thought was what I thought was entertaining. The first one was the F1 race in Detroit. I would have absolutely, I've heard stories from individuals that had been there back in the day. I think it just would have been phenomenal. I mean, Senna was still racing then. To be able to see that. And I think at least now it would still be really cool, because I think the race route was like parallel with Jefferson. So it went like right into the Rensen and, raced along the bank of the Detroit River. So, which was literally from where I was working downtown, literally you could see that from our window. So, that just would have been incredible, as much as I know it was kind of a dodgy circuit.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one was one that I did have the privilege of going to and seeing back in the day, and that was MIS for IndyCar. The Michigan International Speedway was designed for IndyCar and had like I said, I think last week when we were touching on, what got us into racing, it was one of the first couple races for IndyCar I ever went to. And it was just a phenomenal show. And where you sit, you can see pretty much everything going on at every angle of the track. It's not like Indianapolis where you have a whole entire straightaway of just stands and a pagoda that makes it impossible for you to see any. Pretty much you can only see about 2/3 of the track, if not, or half if you're lucky. And some of you might not know this, but when there was the IRL kart split, the karts version of the Indy 500 was at MIS. It was, as Daryl was talking about on the break, the US 500. So they would, do it the same weekend, and it was a whole competition thing. And, I'm a little bummed I never got the opportunity to do that, but man, and so many people have said it to this day, we'd love to see it back at MIS. Is it going to happen? Yes. Probably not, but we can keep dreaming. So Daryl also had an interesting answer for his, if you want to continue.
Yeah. Mine, I'll start with the IndyCar one first, because that is the Cleveland Airport Circuit.
Oh, that's a good one.
That was one of my favorite tracks growing up watching Champ Car and then kart. I don't know if the airport is still set up to even run a race like that, but if we could somehow get that track back on the schedule, since we've already been back to Portland, that would be awesome. And then the one that fits the theme, which is 20 minutes outside of my house, the Cadillac Grand Prix of DC at RFK Stadium. It was run for 1 year in 2002. The Paynoses won the overall, and that was such an incredible race just to see sports cars running around a glorified parking lot. And they put on a great race that weekend. Like, it was an incredible show, and I was excited for that race to come back around, but unfortunately, there's a residential area right behind the parking lot, which doesn't react well to loud racing noises all weekend, and the race was scrapped after one season, unfortunately. But it was an incredible race. Yeah. It was an incredible race, and I really wish it was coming back, but that was really the only place to have a street race in DC. DC is, at the best of times, is not set up for traffic, and with all the heightened security, that would have to go around where we want the race to be. It would just be a huge waste of time. So it's unfortunate that we never really will get a race back in DC, and I love that track so much.
Hey, so since we're talking ones that we'd love to see them return to, what are ones that we would like them to either stop or are relieved that they've not brought back? I know the first one that comes to my head.
I do too, but I don't know, because I've covered a race at that one, but Pocono, and they're kind of doing it where they're moving it on NASCAR just to one weekend.
Oh, good.
Pocono for NASCAR is, as a coverage experience, it was great. Being there, it was fun. That track just does not work on TV, and that's no fault of the series. It's a one groove race. It is except for they put the PJ1 on the outside line. I can understand why people think that's a hard race to watch on television.
Yeah, and with everything that happened, with Wickens there too, I mean, it doesn't really add to the excitement at that point either. There's a lot going on that's wrong with the track at this point too, so I don't know, it's hard to say. For me at least, I was thinking Sonoma. Like, I screamed
Oof.
with joy when I found out they were like, oh yeah, we're not going to do Sonoma anymore. Like, about damn time, guys.
Sonoma is just the way that track is set up. It doesn't lend itself to good racing. And I know NASCAR, they tried to go back to the full version of the circuit to try to spice it back up, and it didn't really work. The track's just too narrow. I mean, that's all you can really say about it. It is too narrow of a road course to really have any sort of passing. And for Formula One, I'm going to say I could do without Catalunya. I could honestly do without the Spanish Grand Prix at the track it's at right now.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I never think about Catalonia and be like, yeah, that's exciting. Now, MotoGP there is phenomenal, but yeah, beyond that, meh.
It's not the most fun track. Are there any others that I can think of that I wouldn't want back?
I don't think so. I think those pretty much, I think, nail it for.
I think the
terrible.
7,000 street races we tried to have in the mid 2000s. Remember that?
Everything's gonna be on the street, guys. Oh, that was a terrible idea.
Oh
And
my
how they set
goodness.
them up too was just like, you're like, what are you doing? What? No, you're not doing well.
Was
Please stop.
that San Jose? They were all bad, I'm going to be honest. Denver was the only one of that era that was actually decent. The Baltimore race was, I never went to it the 2 years it was here, but it was awful because they kept trying to go down the main straight, which had the mark of the light rail tracks, and the cars were catching air. San Jose was there at one point. I don't know why Chicago was coming to mind. I don't remember there being a Chicago race, but it's just like the mid-2000s, everyone was obsessed with having a street race. Miami had a street race in 2002 with the American Le Mans series, and none of these races lasted. I don't think a lot of them really drew well, and it didn't work. Why were we trying to put everything on the street?
More people in a populated area, you can get more people to come. I mean, that's kind of what Formula E's formula, didn't mean to duplicate that, but legitimately that's their like formula and strategy for doing the races in the cities like they do, because you're in a high populated, high volume area of individuals. You're more likely to bring more people in, even people who've never been to it before, because you're there.
Yes. But unfortunately, it didn't work because those cars are really, really loud. You have to shut down a portion of the city for about a month to set up, and a lot of people just don't want to deal with the frustration of putting everything up, unfortunately, for us racing fans. But
yeah, see how well that goes for Detroit.
Yeah.
Damn protesters. And actually, speaking about courses, I know that we have talked a lot about how Detroit, the Belle Isle Grand Prix, has been a snooze fest, but the last couple of years have been interesting.
Yes.
Definitely interesting. So I wouldn't say that I would write it off so soon. But for a little bit there, I was like, I don't know if we should keep doing this. This is not working out well.
That race has been good for sports cars.
Yeah. IndyCar.
Not so much. Another one this one I'm glad is gone. That terrible race in Louisville.
Oh, no, thank you.
Or not in Louisville, excuse me, in Louisiana.
Oh, wait.
It was
Oh, yes. No.
That the track that had zero drainage, and its only claim to fame is that they shot that scenes from that mediocre Will Smith movie there. And
mediocre Will Smith.
He was playing a con man, and he was selling some sort of fuel strategy thing. I don't remember it. My girlfriend went to see the movie. I didn't. It wasn't very good from what I heard. But that track, I don't know how that guy got IndyCar to come there, but he is a legend for 1 year pulling that off.
Congratulations, sir. You've done it. You've created what could be the worst race ever in motorsports. I don't know why I had to sound like half Australian and British while I did that, but it just seemed really appropriate.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the accent came from.
It was like, I'm going to be aristocratic, and also I don't know. Yeah. We'll work with it.
Yeah. Oh, that race was so bad. And the track didn't have any drainage, so the rain is just sitting on the track, and they had to run most of it under yellow. It was not a fun race at all.
Yeah, no one really... Yeah. Oops.
I can't really think of any more that I'm not really that... You know what? This would be sacrilegious to some NASCAR fans. I'm not exactly broken up that Rockingham is no longer around.
I'm not one to talk, though.
I just never liked that track. That track never gelled with me, and I don't know why, but that's just one track I never really liked out of NASCAR. And then another one for Formula One, Valencia. I think a lot of people are glad we're not running Valencia anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, it wasn't bad, but, I think, one that you could almost add to the list is Baku, because it's like, it's so bad it's good in a way, like, because it's so weirdly narrow and the weirdest things happen, and it's always sometimes a little painful to watch, but yet it's good.
We still haven't got our F1 clog up at the castle section.
I'm waiting for it. Somebody's got to ruin it for everybody. Oh, they will. Just wait for it.
I cannot wait to see it. And this is another one that's going to be sacrilegious. If we said tomorrow we weren't running at Monaco anymore, I would not be sad.
Yeah, the prestige of it is really what draws you in. But with how wide the IndyCars, wow, my brain's off and I'm ahead of myself. With as wide as the F1 cars have gotten, it's honestly like watching a very fast parade.
Yes.
Or at least a fast parade that's on repeat for 90 minutes.
It's not a good track for modern F1. It really isn't. It's one of those tracks that they've outgrown as a circuit. And
I don't know why the cars have to still be getting so much bigger too to actually create that problem. Like, we're gonna make it a smaller car. It's not that difficult. Why do you have to have all of that space?
I like the bigger F1 cars. Like my favorite ones. Sharp. My favorite F1 cars are like the mid-2000s F1 cars, the V10s. Like, those were beautiful cars.
Yeah.
Those were big, beautiful...
I like the old stuff.
Yeah, those were big, beautiful race cars, all right?
That's fair. I'm not disagreeing with that, and I'm not saying that they're not beautiful cars. I'm just saying, like, why can't we still make those cars but have them be a little bit smaller in scale?
See, they tried that in 2009, 2010, and they did not look good. The
well,
2009
doing
cars.
well enough. You should try harder.
Those cars did not look good at all.
Yeah.
But
well, we can dream.
It is what it is. We're going to take our final break of the evening. We're going to have hot laps, and when we come back, we're going to handicap this IndyCar battle heading into Pocono. Who do we think has the leg up in the championship? To be honest, I would not be taking a certain guy in Chip Ganassi Racing lightly. More about that on the other side of this break here on iSports Radio. This is the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
From the home plate to the nets, the end zone to the finish line, here nothing is off limits and no sport is safe. Not what it seems, with your host Caitlin Seam, bringing you sports like you've never heard before. Catch me Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on IE Sports Radio. The only question is, are you ready?
Hi everybody, it's Calvin here from USRN, here to give you an important message. Since 2017, we have done our absolute best to provide you with nothing but the highest quality of sports calls in the greatest of quantity possible. Thanks to you, our station has grown more than we ever thought. That's why, with your help, we would like to grow even further. Just think, twice the amount of your favorite calls, 24 hours of coverage, talk shows, play-by-play, game-by-game analysis, and so much more. That's right, USRN2 is officially in development, but we can't do it alone. We have set up a GoFundMe page that you can access from our homepage on the left of your screen. We also are planning special giveaways and prizes to our highest owners. Our goal here at USRN is to bring you the best calls possible at no cost to you. In order to continue to do that, we need your help now. Please check out our GoFundMe page, and if you would like to know how you can help, you can email usrnradio@gmail.com. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do.
My NBA college basketball fans out there, tired of hearing about just the dramatic stuff in the basketball world, tired of hearing about what such and such wore tonight, and not about the game? Hey, leave all of that alone. Because on Wednesday nights, I got this show called Fast Break with Phil Jones here on the IE Sports Radio. And all we talk about is straight basketball, from where it comes down to the NBA, the NCAA, and even the WNBA. I don't discriminate. I give all my NBA, my basketball, whatever you want with sports, to the slam dunks, to the three-pointers, to the teardrops, to the game winners. I'm there. I'm speaking about it. I have a debate. I have my panel. I got a squad that rolls in, and we're going to be talking mad sports. We're going to be talking about the Lakers. We're going to be talking about even the Brooklyn Nets. We're going to be talking about who's the top team out there in the NBA. So, tired of all the drama,
tie all the... What did he wear today? What kind of shoes he had? Forget all that. Just come over. Listen to Fast Break with Phil Jones here on IE Sports Radio every Wednesday night, 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, y'all. So, yo, tune in.
Welcome back to the Extra Mile here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Time to go hot wrapping. Matt here from Two Wheels Wednesday. Brilliant MotoGP weekend we had at the Red Bull Ring last weekend. Andrea Dovizioso beating Marc Marquez at the very last corner of the race to take victory in the Austrian hills. We had NASCAR in the Irish hills, and Austin Hill won the truck race at Michigan on Saturday. Austin Cindric went back-to-back in Xfinity after getting his first win last week at Watkins Glen. Another one came along on Saturday at Mid-Ohio. DTM were in the UK this weekend. They were at Brands Hatch. Marco Wittmann and championship leader Rene Rast getting victories. And W Series came to its conclusion at the weekend at Brands Hatch as well. British success, Alice Powell winning the race, and she's got a call up to the IMSA race at VIR off the back of her W Series participation, so good to see that. But Jamie Chadwick took the championship victory after a fourth place finish was enough for her to secure the title. Nearest the win had points scored for myself and Caitlin Seen last week at Michigan. Carl Larson's third place in the cut race was enough to give us both a point each, which means that Caitlin now has a 7-point lead over Larry B at the top of the scoreboard. Darrell and Matt Owens joint third on 18. Double nearest the win action this week with the Bristol Cup race Saturday night under the lights, and IndyCar at Pocono for the Pocono 500. Live both of those races commentary wise on USRN, of course. That is your double up for hashtag nearest the win this week. More hot laps on next week's show. It's back to Darrell and the crew for the continuation of the Extra Mile.
Thank you so much for that, Matt, with the most recent edition of Hot Laps. And hey, check out Grid Rating on Twitter. Matt's personal ratings of every driver, just about every series in motorsports, all together in one place. That is at Grid Rating on Twitter. And we are back here on the Extra Mile, getting ready for our final segment of the evening. And we're going to talk IndyCar now. And there wasn't any IndyCar news whatsoever. Yeah. There totally wasn't a major story about a team finally deciding to run a full-time schedule or anything like that. I promise.
Oh, nothing crazy big, nothing that shook up the entire silly season.
Yes.
No, not at all. No.
And for
Except
those
there was.
Yes. And it was pretty much the biggest story of the year that finally McLaren has committed to a full year stint in the IndyCar, in the NTT Data IndyCar series. They are partnering with Aero Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports to create Aero, excuse me. To create Aero McLaren SP, and McLaren will be working with the Aero Schmidt-Peterson racing team next year as McLaren is finally entering the NTT Data IndyCar Series. No word yet on whether or not Fernando Alonso will be joining up with that program. He has been non-committal about doing a full year stint in the IndyCar Series, so we might just see him only doing the Indy 500. But Lita, we've been talking about it for a couple of years now, and looks like we finally got it.
Yeah, and so the other interesting things that you didn't get a chance to touch on quite yet too is that with this partnership, SPM, which has been had a beloved partnership with Honda, is breaking ties with Honda to move to Chevrolet for the McLaren program. Obviously, this goes hand in hand with McLaren breaking ties with Honda in the F1 program, which look how well that turned out for them. So that's one of the interesting things. So it leaves up a lot up in the air regarding drivers at that point, because if anybody is a Hinch fan out there or watches television or Hulu for that matter, you know that James Hinchcliffe does a ton of commercials for Honda. I mean, he's been with Honda almost his whole career, I think, if not actually his whole career with IndyCar. So this kind of left a question on where Hinchcliffe was going to be. The other thing I do want to point out too is this does not guarantee that Alonso is coming to IndyCar. Just a few weeks back, if we remember, it was announced that Alonso McLaren had actually also broken ties. So I wouldn't get too excited about Fernando making the move over to McLaren, because after the embarrassment
they walked
Indy
that
500.
But then they walked that back the next day. Like, that is really weird.
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation is weird in general. So I'm apprehensive in getting my hopes up in regards to Alonso coming to IndyCar. I mean, it could be possible, but there's just been so much back and forth with everything that I'm weary that that's going to be it. And you also have to think of who's still on the Aero-Schmidt-Peterson team as of right now as well. You have Robert Wickens, who is theoretically in the third car, as well as, and my brain is blanking out on me, our favorite old F1 driver. Not
Ericsson?
Ericsson, there we go. Thank you. I don't know why I blanked out on that so badly. So this also puts their seats up. I'm hoping that Wickens will still have a seat regardless, but, you know, this really shakes things up. You have now a prominent team that is moving to a different manufacturer. It kind of opens the doors up for some other drivers that may not have actually had much of a chance with Schmidt-Peterson or SPM with the Honda sponsorship. So it's I find it funny that, you know, for weeks leading into a couple weeks ago with the announcement of Rossi staying at Andretti, which again, I'll point out is not, you know, all of you should know better.
I don't know why people thought he was leaving for Penske.
I honestly, I mean, because Penske is like the creme de la creme, and you know, if you get an offer from Penske, do you really turn it down? But in this case, what would he not have in Andretti that he would have at Penske aside from a different kind of prestige, you know? Like, it's almost irresponsible to turn it down, but, you know, at the same time, he's got that great backing with Honda. He's very dedicated to that, and he's done incredibly well with Andretti for what they have. So, you know, there's no need for him to move. But that was the big news, was whatever Rossi picks is going to determine how the silly season is going to go. And I don't think that's quite it. I think that McLaren partnering with SPM is going to shake things up a little bit, because if James doesn't or can't stay at SPM, where does James go? where who is going to move to the Chevrolet team. So I think there's a lot lying on the line now, way more than what Rossi could have mixed up had he moved from where he was at.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question is, what Honda team does he go to at this point? And it's, for people wondering why they're going to Chevy, well, McLaren and Honda, they didn't exactly get along, to be honest. So, understandably, Honda's not going to go down that route again, even if they have like 8 or 9 other teams as well. So, McLaren is joined up with Chevy. I mean, to be fair, McLaren also burned every bridge possible down on their way out the door. So,
actually, if you guys really want to know, and you're not familiar with the Honda McLaren breakup, all you need to do is watch episode 4 of Grand Prix Driver. It was one season of a series where they followed the McLaren F1 season going into the 2018 season or 2017 season, and the leading into the end of a partnership with Honda. And oh my God, it's a little dramatic. So I'm just letting you know, may not be a bad direction to go if you need a little recap or refamiliarization with what actually happened with that. But it was so abrupt, although predictable, that Honda would not even work with them for F1 or for the Indy 500 this year. So, want to talk about burning a bridge? Man, did they burn it!
Yeah, they nuked
and then
the
cover
bridge.
it concrete and then some.
Yeah. And then nuked it from orbit just to be sure. Basically, that relationship that relationship is irreparable, and I don't think it ever will be. Ever again. So they're here. The question is, where does where does Hinch go now if he stays with Honda? I'm not sure if there's another competitive Honda team they could stick him at, unless they try to.
I mean, Ganassi would be his next. Ganassi or going back to Andretti. Like, Ganassi, they would have to get rid of Rosenquist because they're not going to get rid of Dixon.
No, Dixon's there till he's ready to retire. So it's either
Right.
Rosenquist leaves, which would be ridiculous because he's been having a great year, or they go back to a third car, which I don't see that being a thing.
Right. So I don't know. Everybody's going to have to strap in tight though and hang on because it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, silly season for IndyCar just got a lot more interesting with one team change.
It's a spicy.
Yes. And with that, continue.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to let you continue. If not, I was going to actually go into the racing at Pocono this weekend.
Oh, I just had one other thing I wanted to touch on in IndyCar too. So there was an announcement a couple weeks ago that Connor Daly did have a ride for the last race of the season, and he's got another ride lined up here leading into the last few weeks of the season. So it's kind of added up to almost half a season worth of racing. And like I was saying earlier, it's kind of interesting that somebody who had no rides and had somehow gained a ride for the Indy 500 has raced almost half the season just jumping from team to team. So I'm hoping this is a good sign for a return of Connor Daly to a full season or even a part-time season ride for next year, but we'll have to see.
I hope he can get into another full season ride. Connor Daly's a great guy, and it kind of ties into the conversation we had at the top of the program where there's a lot of drivers that don't have the money that have ended up on the outside looking in with these races or with these teams in these series. Case in point, look at all the young drivers that are only running the Indy 500 at this point. Like Sage Karam was in a full-time ride, struggled 1 year, ended up out of Ganassi, and has not sniffed a full season ride since.
No, and I mean he's had a string of bad luck. I mean, there's a reason why he has the hashtag Bad Luck Connor.
Yes.
So it's just interesting that but he has performed really well. So you're kind of sitting here like, is it because of the resources he's had access to, or is it a lack of talent? I don't think it's a lack of talent. And I'm glad that he's kind of got this season to kind of show people like, hey, I'm not somebody to mess around with here.
Right.
So hopefully he shows them who's boss in these next couple of races. He's been doing fairly well. I mean, it's not necessarily podium finishes, but it is enough that at least, it's above average. We'll put it that way. It's above average.
Yes.
So
yes,
it's a lot better than what it was when he was actually running and, running with Foyt. And we're not going to talk about that. That's like the season that must not be spoken of.
That was not a good season in any way, shape, or form, but we will continue on into this weekend's action, the ABC Supply 500, which will be held at the Pocono Raceway this weekend. And it is hard to go into this weekend without talking about what happened last season with Robert Wickens getting into the fence and the tragedy that befell Justin Wilson last couple of weeks, or a couple of years ago, excuse me. This is a track for IndyCar that you can kind of forgive IndyCar fans for being more apprehensive than excited for, because the last couple times we have been here for this series, it has not ended well.
No, and I mean, if some of you didn't have the chance to actually watch the video or even be watching it live, God, I can still remember watching it, and just it felt like you were holding your breath for hours trying to figure out what was going on. And a lot of drivers going into this weekend, there have been talks that this track is really not one of the safest tracks on the schedule. And I honestly haven't looked in to see if they've been making any improvements or modifications to the safety features on the track, that things that you see at other tracks that are a little bit more updated, stuff like even that you see at IMS. So it's a nerve-wracking weekend. It's not going to be an easy one going into. I haven't even looked to see if Wickens is going to go. He's been going to a lot of the races. That's got to be hard to be there, of all places. A reminder of that entire day. If you guys can handle it, you can watch that video. It is on YouTube. They were a little tasteless with it when it first happened, and it was playing everywhere before anybody even found out his condition. So that was also an unfortunate situation. The joys of social media, guys. But it's hard to watch. You physically hurt watching that play. It's hard to stomach. It's amazing he got out of there alive. 100% amazing he got out of there alive.
I cannot believe that he's still alive. I honestly thought we had lost him. I really did. And
the way the media was so silent for so long, it was kind of looking like that was the news we were going to get.
It just felt like Dan Weld in 2011 all over again, unfortunately. But thankfully, Robert is still here. The incident with Justin Wilson was just a freak accident that just a million times. You could play that you could play that scenario over a million times and a million different things would have happened. But that was just, for him, wrong place, wrong time. And unfortunately, we lost him when the piece of debris ended up hitting him in the head after Sage Karam got into the wall. I'm not even sure what you do for that one. Not NASCAR. IndyCar is finally going to, not really a canopy, but a windscreen type protection device to protect the head of the drivers. Hopefully this goes towards full protection at some point. I hope.
Right.
But
and the nice thing I've liked about their development on that part is they're actually taking the time to make sure they develop something correctly, that actually works with the drivers in the car and will do the job, but that the drivers don't find issues with either. Like, they're really taking in the feedback of the drivers whenever they take something that they're testing out. So, we don't have F1 with the halo where it's like, this works, slap it on.
Yep.
There you go. You got your protection. We did it. Yeah, so there is kind of that. You have to appreciate that. I wish that they had something developed a little bit better. It's also something, and this can be for another, another one of our shows, but really looking at tracks and when we're returning or bringing things to venues, what is the safety? How updated is it? And should there be more put into place and mandated by the series and support to ensure that their tracks are safe so that things like this don't happen?
I'm not sure what you could do for the Wickens accident other than make sure these cars can't get into the dang fence, because
they can't go through the fence.
Yeah, and there's not a lot you can really put up other than the fence to really make the cars safer. Everyone talks about, the fence is too dangerous, the fence is too dangerous. Well, the car's not supposed to be up there to begin with, because the fence isn't designed to protect against the car. That's what the wall is for. But unfortunately, there are certain accidents where cars end up getting into that fence and it just becomes a cheese grater. And they're fixing one part of it. The other one's going to be, unfortunately, much harder to fix. It's just bad that these accidents, the past couple of years, these serious incidents have happened at one racetrack. And I know IndyCar's trying to come back past 2020. Well, that's going to be a situation. I imagine both the series and the track will be working extremely hard to make sure that the track will be safe for those type of cars to run the event safely going forward.
Yeah, so I honestly would be interested to see them put together something that really evaluates where some of these tracks are. I know it would be quite the effort, and maybe they have better things to think about in their mind, but I do think it's something that needs to be observed, because not the racetracks are based on who's running the racetrack. It's not controlled by the series. So is it something that the series that do race there get together and go, hey, you know what, we are really concerned about the safety of this, let's see if we can put together some money or some support so that they can get it to a level where our drivers feel they're in a good place. We clearly do not want to see cars launching through a fence and into the tree line.
No.
I never want to see that again. Oh,
No.
Thank God he's still okay.
That was rough. And we now have 4 races until the end of the season, and due to the slip up at Mid-Ohio for Joseph Newgarden, it has now become a 4-horse race between Newgarden, Rossi, Pagenaud, and Scott Dixon. And with 4 races to go in the season, first, the brass at the NTT IndyCar Series have got to be happy, because it's a tag team match between two Chevys and two Hondas to end this. And two, Scott Dixon is not a guy that you count out in a championship fight. If he is within striking distance, he has a chance to take it. And with Newgarden letting Dixon back in, Lita, you can't say he's the odds-on favorite to win the championship, but you cannot be surprised if he ends up winning the championship at Laguna Seca.
Oh, no, not at all. And I like that we're going to get close to ending on this note, too, because I feel like Dixon, he's one of those ones that I feel like we've talked about, and we're like, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. But he's close. And then he's like, yeah, watch me do it. And then he gets it. So when Dixon's got his sights set on something, he gets it. Mm-hmm. So, as much as I would love to see Rossi get his first championship win, or see the rivalry just continue between Newgarden and Rossi, I think Dixon is in it till the end. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen him win it on the last day, and remember, it is double points at I keep saying Watkins Glen, Laguna Seca. So it is all open when they get there. And we know how Scott Dixon is when a championship is close. I would not be surprised at all if he's hoisting number 6.
Yeah. Can we also point out the beauty of ask and you shall receive, and how much we all complained about how terrible Sonoma was? And not only did they not put it at Sonoma, but we now have Laguna Seca back on the schedule. Like,
yes,
guys, let's work on this. What other ones can we change?
I mean, Laguna Seca is a great track for IndyCar. Everyone talks about the pass that probably should have been called illegal, but was not on the last lap there back in the 90s. Like, that was an incredible track for Champ Car. It should be a great track for IndyCar. They're going to end the season there, and it's going to be a dogfight for the championship. And it would be funny because we've all been talking this year about, oh, we got the two Americans fighting. Oh, it's so great. IndyCar's got its American rivalry again, and the New Zealander ends up winning the championship because reasons.
I mean, I think it's hilarious myself.
I will come on the show after that race in full laughter of Scott Dixon ends up stealing the championship from Rossi and Newgarden.
I mean, I'll be more than happy to eat my own words in this situation. Yeah. It's warranted.
It'd be hilarious.
Also, I would just love it in the sense of watching Dixon be like, kids, I know you're having all the fun, but this is, parents are in it to win it. We're still around.
Yeah. The old guy ain't going away yet, so that'll be interesting to see, but we actually need to make some picks before we get out of here this evening. We've got Bristol in NASCAR, and we've got in IndyCar, of course, Pocono. I mean, it's Bristol. I'm taking Kyle Busch. I mean, there's no other driver to take at Bristol, to be honest. And hopefully I'll actually get some points here because we have not actually scored a winner in NASCAR since since Michigan, when Larry B picked the winner back in May. So it's been a while since we've actually got a NASCAR race right.
Oh my goodness. I was going to say Truex, but I'm like 99% sure I picked him last week. Oh, no, I didn't. I picked JJ, didn't I?
Yes.
Ooh,
and he
had a
terrible
Truex,
weekend.
Yeah, well, I don't want to talk about it. So I'll go with Truex. There's another one who might actually be done with his phenomenal wins, man. As for Pocono, well, crap. You know what? I'm going to put Dixon onto it. I haven't picked anybody but Rossi and a couple others. I think Dixon's the way to go.
I picked Dixon last week, so I can't pick him this week. If we're going to an oval, Rossi is a great pick. The last guy to win a 500-miler would be Pagenaud, but that's Indy. I think I'm going to go Rossi this week. I think Newgarden loses some more ground, and that's in before Newgarden absolutely dominates the weekend.
I think it's I think it's a good call. I would do it myself, but I'm shaking it up a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I actually need to read some stats and do it that way too. But
we have, before we go, some late breaking news. Bailey Curry in the Xfinity Series has failed a random drug test from NASCAR. He tested positive for DMAA in his system and apparently came from a pre-workout substance. Unfortunately, that particular ingredient with this, and I'm going to mess up this pronunciation, so I'm sorry to any medical professionals out there. Methylhexanine is a banned substance under NASCAR substance abuse policy, so he will be suspended immediately under their program, which if it's just a pre-workout substance, I see him coming back in a couple of weeks. It's like, read your labels better, and hopefully that'll be the end of it, and Bailey Curry will be back sooner rather than later. But it is time to say goodbye.
Hold on. Can I say one last thing before? It's a quick shout out.
Yes.
A shout out to Bob Gennard, who was so sweet. I had sent him a GP Girl sticker and sent me a bunch of stickers and swag that he had gotten from Road America for IMSA not too long ago. So thank you for that. And a shout out to Couch, who sent me a pretty cool little racing care package, including a signed card of Mario Andretti and some cards of Brad Keselowski and Jimmy Johnson.
Nice.
Got a good laugh out of that one. So thank you, Couch. Thank you, Bob. Those were amazing things that I got this week in the mail. So I just wanted to give you guys more of a proper thank you on air, as I know you guys listen to us every week. So we appreciate it, and we love you for it.
Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for listening, and we're going to head out for this show. Remember, you can find Lita's writings at gbgirl.com. Mine are at wbgrnetwork.com. Follow all our social medias on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, check out the website, www.iesportsradio.com. You can hear all of our shows, if you missed any, on the website, the Spreaker Show Reel, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, and other places where podcasts can be heard. And if you want to participate in Nearest the Win, just tweet out your picks for this weekend's races with hashtag Nearest the Win. So for Lita, I'm Daryl. This has been The Extra Mile, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.